Book 12 of The Wheel of Time, The Gathering Storm, was an experience. I've got to say, as most definitely another one of my favorite books of the series. I think I might put that as my second favorite book, maybe even first. That's to be determined on a reread. But everything that happens in this book just feels like such a nice culmination of who these characters have been through the previous 11 books. Like, the change has not been gradual. The change has not been abrupt. This has been set up for so long. And, like, because you're reading through these character arcs and everything that goes all along, like, you don't notice it bit by bit. But when it finally comes together, it just, like, it hits so well. I have to say that Brandon Sanderson did an excellent job. And I'm not sure how much note work Robert Jordan had, but I assume a ton, because I feel like his influence all throughout the books. And I've read a ton of Brandon Sanderson. I felt his, especially in like certain comedic moments or like just little sentences and sequences that you're like, yeah, that's definitely a Brandon Sanderson book. I've just got to say, this book was excellent. The pacing was superb. There was never a time where it dragged. Really, like, it got you on to the next moment of interest every single time. Every time I went to stop reading, something happened, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta find out what's going on. I'm gonna jump in here before the real meat of the review starts and I get into characters and just say, like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I'm almost done with the series, and it's really nice to be supported. Thanks, guys. The two main players in this book are most definitely Egwene and Rand. I'll start with Egwene, who is still in the White Tower, and now that she kind of has a backing of the sisters who are hunting the Black Aha that we've been following in previous prologues of the other books, it comes together of the sisters of the Tower, the Loyalists, are starting to see her as like a viable Aes Sedai, not just a novice. And throughout the book, she just has these moments where she's meeting the sisters and, like, spitting just a sound logic and, like, these, like, facts towards these loyalists. And they're all just like, well, she makes more sense than Eladia. She's smarter than Eladia. And she's not insane. And there's the moments, like, with the Mistress of Novices. The Mistress of Novices, who she later makes her keeper, where she's, like, a loyalist to the Tower, but very much so seeing what Egwene is doing with holding in the pain. Well, not holding in the pain, but like taking the beatings, because the pain of the White Tower being split is greater than her physical pain. And she laughs at it. She's like, this can't affect me. What matters most is uniting before Tarmon-Gai'don. And then the dinner with Eladia, where she just dismantles her, like absolutely dismantles her in front of the sitters of the other Ahas, and like she's getting whipped, but she stands up. She's like, this, I don't care. What matters most is you being torn down. And they accuse both each other of his dark friend, and she's thrown in the cell. And then all throughout that, it's just excellent scene after excellent scene. Eventually she gets let out as Eladia cools down and becomes a little bit more calm and makes a smarter play of like still treating her like a novice. And while she's like waiting for the trial and seeing how it's all going to work out, and she's mad at these sisters for not tearing Eladia down and deposing her as Amyrlin, multiple things happen. First, she is, towards the end of the book, she is going to her room after she leaves the cell, and there is Perrin. Perrin, you're like, oh yeah, whatever, oh, she was just with Matt, whatever. And then she's like saying all these things, and she's like, your dress is green, and novice dresses are white. And the little like gotcha moment, like I was like, oh, this spices thing up, because at the same time, you know, the Sea-Chain are sending their attack towards the White Tower. You don't know when that's going to hit, but that's still in the back of your mind. Now Perrin, who was just meeting with Matt and gave him a letter, is a Black Sister, and you with Egwene are like, ah shit, this messes everything up, because she was, at the same time, the Hall was deciding what to do with Eladia. And the moment of just going back and forth of, is she a Black Sister? Well, you know she's a Black Sister, but like, is she good? Is she like evil? Like, what's she gonna do with Egwene? Like, you're like, no, I like Perrin. I don't want to think of her as like a bad character, and like she's gonna hurt Egwene, who's currently full of fork root, after she convinced him, like, go find out what's going on, like her red guards, like, go find out what's going on. And so she can't do anything. And Varen pulls up with her 2 books, and she's like, this is every black sister I was able to discover. And I know my fellow compatriots in the brown may think of me as black, but please tell them that I did the work of the brown, and I'm brown at heart. And Egwene's like, no, you're white, and you're with the light, even though you sacrificed your life, your whole entire, like, life, and drank poison for your final hour to uncover these secrets and cleanse the White Tower. And just the amount of sisters that were unveiled, and that was just written so emotionally. And like Varen just like lays down in her bed, and she's like, the oath rod is not in the Amyrlin room, so she wasn't able to try to unswear that, so it was a sacrifice. And I think that if she was able to unswear that, it wouldn't have hit as hard. But that was just amazing moments. And then bang, as Egwene's studying the book, Sea-Chan attack. The one novice slash accepted, or that came into the tower from Egwene's camp, comes and she's like, oh my god, we're getting attacked by Shadow Spawn and all that, but it's not. And then so Egwene rounds up all the novices, forms a circle, teleports or gateways into the Amyrlin room, grabs the rod of power or whatever, and just starts laying waste as the rest of the sisters are decimated and taken out by these like super elite group of Sea-Chan that just hit and run, try to grab as many. And it's just the empowering moments of where it's not like, oh, girl boss, go get him. It's just like, it just adds up perfectly and just shows that like she is prepared for these moments, and she has become the Amyrlin through these 12 books. Going from like the girl in the small village, do what her elders say, like listen, head down, to now being, I am the person of power, I know what to do best. It's just been an amazing journey for her character especially. And throughout that battle, the one white sister organizes small resistance too, and overall the tower gets out pretty badly. But at the same time, Siuan, who was meeting Egwene in the dream before she got woken up by the accepted, goes and bonds Gareth Bryan and takes Gawain into the tower to rescue Egwene, who is now passed out after just slaughtering as many Sea-Chan as she could. And they take her back to the camp, screws up with her whole plans, and as Amyrlin, she has to treat them as Amyrlin. She can't be like, oh, Siuan, I know you meant good. Like, she was like, you've lost my trust and all that. And that brings me a little bit to Gawain, who I'll touch on quickly. I don't get all the hate. Like, yeah, I didn't really like him, but I think he kind of like redeemed himself in the thoughts that he had in this book. When you're viewing his actions and his hate towards Rand through getting more Rand POV and then just only getting this from him, I thought it was fine. I thought it was like, yeah, he's conflicted. He has his loyalty to Elaine and his loyalty to Egwene. He doesn't necessarily like Eladi. He doesn't like Eladi at all. He doesn't care about Aes Sedai. He really just wants them to be safe. And it's very ironic. It's like, oh, she needs protection when she's like one of the most powerful women in the world. It's whatever. It's a played out trope. It's all good. But I don't really get the hate towards him. But moving on, now that she's back in the camp, she calls the hall and gets rid of the black sisters in the hall. And it's just excellent scene after excellent scene. And then it comes out that like their plan to get the rest of the black sisters, and then it just cuts to, we're not stilling and holding them, we're executing them. And it's just the cold-blooded, what needs to be done decision that earlier book Egwene, like 2, maybe 4 books back, like beginning Amyrlin Egwene, would not have made that decision. Like, she's been hardened and she is now ready for office. It's just like, there was a scene with, I think it was Siuan, who was like, you always believed in me. And she was like, maybe not. I knew you had potential. And she's emerged with that potential. And it's just so great. And then so she gets elected into the Amyrlin seat by the tower itself. Once she goes to attack, she waits the extra hour. And then now she is full Amyrlin. And then she does the whole thing like, oh, rebellion was disgraceful, but we must reunite as a tower. Great speech. Well said. That was just, I was so satisfied with the way her character went in this book. The next biggest character is obviously Rand in this book, And my God, he is terrifying. So it starts off like, yeah, it's hard Rand or whatever. He's trying to be tough. He's still like tough. And he meets up with Rodel Artilleriad, who I liked before. And he kind of just like taverns him. It's like, yo, I need you up in the Borderlands. That goes through. They go back to the log mansion. And Samiraj escapes by, I'm guessing, Moradin lets her out. And with the one black sister that's there, collars Rand with the Seachan collar, and he can't do shit as he chokes Min and like has her on the ground choking her. He's just like freaking out. The mental thoughts that are going through is so frantic, and you're like, oh, this is so horrible. Like, you wouldn't think that like this would occur, even though they've been keeping the Forsaken. Like, you were like, no way, this is the result of it. And he taps into the true power that Moradin does, the one that they get like the little eye thingies, and like the way that's written as just like this like horrible but amazing thing is so great. And he just balefires the sister and Samiraj, and Min is just terrified. And this is where kind of the turning point of where I went from very indifferent on Min to liking her in this book, as I see the things that she's like, the painful of like the man she loves is now gone, and like she's still trying to do what's good for him, even though, because she loves him, it's like still him, but he's not there anymore. So she's trying to bring him back and like do what's good for him, even though he no longer is Rand, really. And from this point on, he says it himself. He's like, steel's not hard enough, whatever. I am Kuliandar. It's like the super hard stuff that is made with the power, and just like as the metaphorical reference there. And he is literally he's inhuman. He is alien from this point on in the book. And it just leads to the most like scary scenes at the same time when it's brought up with, you can tell when he's embracing or like holding on the edge of the true power, because everybody's like, there's a darkness around him. And so he banishes Cadswain, and from there on he rallies his forces and goes to Bandar Eban, where he kind of like the Aiel have settled control, which I don't like how disrespectful he's been to the Aiel or whatever, after like the whole trek of securing them, and like the proud people. And like the wise ones say it, they're like, oh yeah, we're holding it together, like after the chiefs meeting. And like he's like taken for them granted, but like it makes sense, because as like how he's been trying to be harder and like tougher and emotionalist, he uses them as the weapon that he sees them as. And so when he goes to Bandar Eban, the the Athanmir ships come, bring grain, and more people come in because they hear there's food. And so this whole thing, the Merchants Council, he's trying to find them. He's in one of their house. They're picking up here and there. There's a tortured messenger. He's trying to find Granadal because he thinks Granadal's in this country. And then while this is happening, I think this is like before the Granadal thing, he goes and meets with Tuon up on Flom on Tommen's Head. And that meeting, Tuon has the chair set up equal, as she's still Daughter of Nine Moons. She's still got the ashes on her face in mourning. She hasn't become the Empress yet. And they meet, and Rand is just forceful, and Tuon manages to resist the Ta'veren nature. And like her impression of him is just like, if you like compared that description to like book 1 Rand, like you would not like do a connect the dots of the same character. It's like, it's terrifying, especially from her perspective of, she is probably the most like, in terms of like military, like her and Rand are 1A 1B in controlling the most power in the world. And like she manages to resist it, even though she wants to just say like, yeah, I will follow you. And then as soon as Rand leaves, he's like, just gets up and leaves. He's fully emotionless. He can't let this get anger him or affect him in his mind. He is just going on about like, I have to like, whatever, they're at my back. Hopefully they won't attack. And so he gets up, he leaves, she stands up, declares herself Empress, and she's like, initiate the attack on the White Tower. And that's going on. Rand goes back to Bandar Eban, and Nynaeve at some point finds the jailer's room, inspects it, goes to heal the one merchant that was put in there, and then it finds poison, and she puts it together who feeds these, and brings in the little boy that works as the candle maker, and he's under the compulsion. They track it down. He manages to spit out like one word, the something barrow, as where Grenadal is in his last moment of hate. Her and Rand open a gateway. Rand sends another of the merchants through. He gets under the compulsion, and as Rand's standing there and Nynaeve's talking to his shit's like, oh, how are you gonna do this? There's like all these people taken. The king might be in there, yada yada yada. Rand just taps into the Choden call. Balefires the whole entire palace. And goes, hey, check that boy. And then, like, Nynaeve's like, what the fuck? You're gonna unravel the world. You're literally gonna rip the world apart by doing this. He's like, yeah, but is he under the compulsion? And he's like, no. I'm like, she's dead. Dips. And it's just, oh, the coldness and the, just like the pure focus that Rand had in his goals. It was just very scary to read through, especially from others' perspectives. Like, the work that they did from his perspective was more of, like, he did still have conflict, but when you view it from the other's perspectives, it's like he's a blank slate. He's like a robot with task commands. It's terrifying. And so, with the final things around Rand being when he goes to Tyr off after Bandar Ebon, he's going down the streets, and then one of the dockmasters comes up. He's like, my lord, all of the grain has spoiled. He's like, what do you mean all the grain? Like, all the grain in the ships has spoiled. And there's new influx of people. And so there's more people than there were before, and absolutely no food. So he just, like, he can't do anything. He tried his best. He leaves, and all these people in the Aradomin area are just going to starve. And it's a tough decision, but he can't do anything about it. But the thing is that brings it through is, it doesn't pain him now, whereas, like, even one book ago, Rand would have been just, like, feeling horrible over that. And now back in Tyr, he is just talking to the Lord he set up there. He's like, yeah, stop complaining, get my armies. And then he's the next chapter is where he's wandering through, and he's just with his guards, and he wanders for, like, a full day. And finally, like, prepare the armies, we go to battle. He means to go fight the Sea Chain, end them once and for all. And then he gets a call to, like, summon to his rooms, and there's Tam. And my God, I've been a big advocate of, Tam should have been here earlier. I think that Tam would have been a really cool character to have in and kept in and, like, had following along with other characters. But I have to revoke that statement. Throwing him in with Rand, once he's this emotionless robot alien, was so perfect. Because you can feel the tension of, like, yeah, my son's a king, but there's also something else wrong with him. It's not just that I respect you because, like, you've come to a position of power. Like, there's those awkward my lords, which just made me cringe. But, like, the way he, like, speaks to him, and, like, he's, like, trying to get through his son. Like, Rand, like, his coldness breaks. But it's still, like, he's still a broken man at this point. Like, even though, like, his, like, exterior of just, like, being so cold breaks, he, like, is talking to Tam still so awkwardly. And he's like, you have done well, you'll get rewarded for your things. And he's like, what? You're my fucking son. And he talks, and Tam's talking to him. He's like, why do you fight? He's like, because I have to. He's like, that's not good enough. And he's telling him, he's like, you need the reason to fight. Comrades fight for their family, they fight for the people next to them, they fight for the kingdom. You need your reason to fight. And Rand, like, rebuttals back. He's talking about, like, foot soldiers have more control. They can just leave. I can't. The pattern will pull me back in. And Tam's like, no, they can't leave. They won't betray themselves. He's being harder on Rand. Like, unlike, like, some other people, they'd be like, oh, Rand, you have to be softer on yourself. He goes with a different approach. And it's like, the people that you think are free still have their own duty, just like you. You're not special in that regard, just because your duty's on a larger scale. But he makes the mistake of bringing up Cadsuane, and Rand flips. He's like, Aes Sedai schemes, I can't trust you, embraces the power, and slams Tam down, and weaves Balefire to murder his father before, like he registers what he's doing, like, one thread away from killing his dad, and stops and goes to Ibudar. And, like, the chapter after that, where Tam goes to the Aes Sedai with Cadsuane and Nynaeve and the other two and Min. And he's like, what the fuck did you do to my son? Not, oh, my son's a monster. He's like, this was such a good boy. Like, this, like, if you recall back to, like, the first 5 books, longer than that, really, he was such, like, a caring and kind person that Tam knew. Like, if he had come through any of those, I think this scene wouldn't have impacted as well as it did, because, like, he would have seen, like, oh yeah, Rand's, like, good ruler and all that, but because he came so late in Rand's process and through so many injuries and trials, he tells him, he's like, what have you done to my son? This is not my son anymore. This is a monster. But it's in a way that he's like, I need to, like, fix this, and, like, I didn't stick to your goddamn script because I'm not gonna manipulate my boy. And that scene was just amazing too. But Rand goes to Ibudar, and there he just trades his coat, goes with the Tinkers, and he's like just like vibing out, eating some food, just debating what to do. And he's walking the street. He's got the Choden Call, and he's just like flipping back and forth. Like this whole entire book, he's debating with Lews Therin, and like they're both as crazy, because there's a line saying it was like the voice is sounding more like Rand's. So that means Rand's voice is also sounding more like Lews Therin. They're both going crazy Rand's going more crazy, I think, and Lews Therin's staying the same. So the levels are evening out to where they are kind of crazy. And he's flipping back and forth from like, I gotta do this to, oh, I'm gonna murder all of them now. I can jump from here to Tanchicho to Flom. I can like get rid of them all. And he embraces the source, falls to the ground, like throws up worst it's ever been when he like embraces it. And he's drawing so much power. And then, like, he just, like, he doesn't do it, but he opens a gateway, and he teleports to his failure fighting the Sea Chan with Kalendor, and then he teleports again, and then finally he teleports to Dragonmount. Where he is on Dragonmount, he's on just this peak, and he's just having this huge mental breakdown and just, like viewing the whole world from just, like, God's view, essentially. And it's like the symbolism of that, him holding a power to destroy anything at the same time as viewing things from like up high. It was just so great. And like the dialogue between him and like Lews Therin, and Lews Therin's the sane one in this situation. Rand's like, why don't I just destroy the pattern, end the world? Why should any of us suffer? But instead Lews Therin's like because Rand's like, oh, we have to repeat these lives over and over and over again. And Lews Therin's like, it gives us chance of redemption. It gives us chance to love again, to meet up with the ones we've spurned, the ones that for him, Elenia, who he murdered in his insanity, Elena. And it's like, breaks for Rand. It breaks through of why he must do what he must do, and why he must fight for the light. Not because he has to, but because he gets a second chance, and because Lews Therin gets a second chance. And there is more to life than just living to die. And those moments as he sat upon this crag of a huge-ass volcano were just so perfect. And when the book ends with him laughing, you're like, okay, this was so roundabout, but I guess Cadsuane did what she was supposed to do. And it was just such a great culmination of to where Robert Jordan does his arcs over such a long period of time, even though it's like a couple years, like, but like page count wise, that it's so subtle, the little twists. There's not these huge moments like in every book where like the character changes. It's once in a while where it makes such an impact because like there's a few sentences every couple of chapters that when the whole arc comes through, it hits just so differently that I don't think a lot of other stories can do without the length and the depth that is explored here. I forgot to touch on that before Rand goes and peaks in his insanity and freaks out, goes to Ibudar and almost killed Tam. He went and met with the Borderlanders, but not really. He traveled to near Farmading, of which he met Huron back from book 2, The Great Hunt. And it was just really cool and like disturbing to see his reaction to the new Rand. He came in and he worshipped Rand because the way he made it through the Portal Stone world of like, wow, he was just like so lordly, and he like took command and saved them. And The new Rand is just nothing like the old Rand. He's terrifying, and Huron picks up on that, and he is just like so wary and doesn't know what to do with him. Like, he expected like a warm greeting, because Rand was always like, oh, don't call me Lord, oh, like you're my friend, yada yada yada. And now this new Rand is just this cold monster. But anyways, he relays that the Borderlander kings and queens want to meet him in Farmani. He says, fuck that, I'm not getting put in a box, no boxes for me, I don't like the box, and dips. That's when he loops back and then ends up with Tam and gets his major freak out. But like, that moment, along with the moment when he's talking to Nynaeve and he's like, you guys think I'm too stupid to see that what you all see of like that I'm making myself too hard and that I won't like survive? But the point is not to survive, but to complete my purpose and then die. There needs to, like, I don't want anything to be left. There doesn't have to be anything left. Lews Therin wants to die, I will die. I agree with that. I want to die. Like, you guys are trying to preserve me. I'm not trying to preserve myself. I see what you see. I just see it differently, and my conclusion is different. And it's just like, it points out that it's just like he knows exactly what he's doing, and that makes that end moment on Dragonmount just so much more satisfying, as he realizes that he doesn't have to just fight to the end. He can live past it. Like, there's a chance he lives past it, and that's just so great. The other characters in the book, like Matt, Perrin, and like everybody else besides Egwene and Rand, like really take a back seat, but it's perfectly fine. Like, especially since they got highlighted in the last book, like, and in previous books too. Like, this was the time for Rand and Egwene to step up, and it worked great. Matt really is just traveling with the army, trying to get to Camelin, and like I heard some people like this is the problem they had, like the book, they had problems with Matt, like because of Brandon Sanderson's writing. I will say, like, it wasn't as like quirky or witty as before, but like it wasn't a huge deal. Like, besides the always looking for Tuon thing, like I didn't really have a problem with it. But the first like instance with Matt is where they come upon a village of where everything's normal, people just kind of got like mended clothes, but night hits and they all just turn into like a rabid zombie mob, but like not just attacking them but at each other, and it's just insanity, horror. I really felt the Brandon Sanderson influence there. You could like smell it, you could taste it, but it was great. Like, I was awesome. And like, once you were done, you're like, damn, these bubbles of evil are like really apparent. And like, that was most definitely like the biggest and most terrifying one yet. And after that, they're moving along and they come upon a city of which, or a bigger town, and the previous mayor from the crazy town of which they return to normal in the morning. So he meets them, like, yeah, I had a poster of you, but we don't sell people out. Somebody's looking for you in the next village. And there, they plan an assault to try to capture this person because they just think dark friend. And then Tallmanes is like, yo, you got a visitor. Matt's like, oh, what the fuck? Goes in, and it's Varen. And this is before she reveals herself as Black Aha. So you're like, oh yeah, I remember Varen. I like her. What's she doing? She explains she got caught up in the Ta'veren web, and she ended up here. Gives Matt a letter and offers to travel to Cable. And she's like, open this after 10 days? Or wait till 50, and if I don't come back, whatever. He negotiates 30, and he's going to open the letter. There's no way he doesn't open the letter. He's just going to be, like, itching to open that, especially after, like, Tom's whole letter thing. Like, he's gonna be like, I got to know what's in the letter. And also, what is in the letter? It can't just be, like, backup Black Aha information. Like, that'd be just, like, pointless and irrelevant. It's got to be something, like, key, like, that relates to Matt specifically. I don't know. I'm excited for that. But moving on to Perrin, I wrote like one thing down when I was taking notes and like trying to gather my thoughts of Perrin repairs wagons and wants his cake and eat it too. Pretty much, he repairs a wagon and then he also is like wanting to be a wolf and enjoy that like battle feeling, but also at the same time not. And he's not happy that he's happy he has Fael back, but he's like not like content as he thought he would be. And like in the wolf dreams, he's with Hopper, and like he's just like conflicted on like who he is, and like there wasn't much development on that. But the confusing thing is when Rand and Matt are glancing into the each other as they can by thinking about each other, he is seen with Galad and Morghese, of which, well, just Galad, and then it's later revealed by Tam that Morghese is alive, of which we knew, but they didn't know, and we didn't get a chapter of that, and I felt like I missed something. Like, I don't know if I just gloss read. I feel like I'd remember that meeting of Morghese being revealed, but like, it didn't happen in this book. I'm assuming they're gonna like go back in time a little bit in the next book and like tell that through. But anyways, that was like just like a little funky drop. I wish they'd had that scene and then Tam had said it, and then we'd be like, oh yeah, we know that. But besides that, Elaine was like not in this book. Just like mentions whatever. I'm fine with that. You know, honestly, I need a little break from Elaine after the past couple of books. And finally, we got Aviendha, now a wise one after her whole entire ordeals. And ironically, it took men saying like, "Why are you dipping your fingers in water? That's a really stupid thing to do." And she gets pissed. And like, we know Aviendha to be, I stand up for myself, I don't take no shit, I know what I am, I know who I am, and like, so we never suspected her to be like, oh, I just need to stand up for myself. We were always thinking like, what did she do so wrong? We never thought it'd just be simply be like, oh, you just got to do what you usually do. But like, because the wise ones are who they are, and like such powerful and like figures there, not necessarily in the power, but just as people, and like, you always expect Aviendha to stand up for herself, and when she doesn't, you're like, okay, so she knows what she's dealing with, she must have done something horrible. And when it's just that one instance, you're like, oh, you never even think that it's just something that simple because of who Aviendha is. And that subversion was great. It didn't take up too much time. It was just excellently paced throughout, and I have to say that was great. She's off in Ruidan, she'll be an equal, and I'm assuming she's going to lay the bridal wreath at Rand's feet. I don't know how it's gonna work with like, I feel like he's got to have some like crazy PTSD. He can't just be like fully back to normal. But oh yeah, Fail killed Massima. That was kind of like whatever. I get it. That's her wife's duty. I think I mentioned that in my last video, even though I'd read ahead a little bit. But yeah, I was fine. Overall, this book was absolutely excellent. It's like either my favorite, or like I'm still leaning towards Shadow Rising book 4, but something I have to determine on a reread. But this book, oh my god, it was just flipping page after page. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoy. I've got New Spring next, because I was supposed to do that 2 books ago, but I just kept on opening a new book, and then the final 2 books, I'm almost done. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like I said, like and subscribe.